honor to have very distinguished speaker leader join with us today. And today now we are prepared for official meeting, and it's already so now. I think Tom Patterson, please, and I saw David, Professor David Zimbabwe join already, and we have some fellows and candidates for AI Society Master Leadership Master Degree Program on join.
Okay, Tuan, should I get started?
Yes, now it's already start.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Tom Patterson. I'm one of the co-founders and a board member of the Boston Global Forum, and I'm going to moderate Vietnam's ambassador to the U.S. And it seeks to help Vietnam deal with the economic impact of the pandemic, and then looking longer term, thinking about sustainable and enlightened development. And the plan, as we see it, is going to focus on coastal cities in Vietnam that have the potential to become crossroads for the world's distinguished leaders, innovators, and thinkers. And there's no coastal city in Vietnam that's more beautiful than the Trang, with its dramatic coastline, its island-dotted bay. I first set eyes on the Trang 50 years ago as an American soldier, and I've been back several times. It's just stunningly beautiful. And the Trang Bay is only one of the province's important bays. There's also Cam Bay, which has Southeast Asia's best deepwater port, and Van Phong Bay, with its many channels and inlets, which they're also constructing as a port city. Now, the Vietnam Spark program is guided by the 6 pillars of our Age of the Global Enlightenment program. And those pillars are spelled out in Remaking the World toward an Age of Global Enlightenment, a book which was conceived by and edited by Boston Global Forum CEO, Nguyen and Tuan, who was previously the editor-in-chief of Vietnam Net. And Tuan is intimately familiar with the Trang. He spent much of his growing up years in the Trang and his early adulthood also in the Trang. Now, the 6 pillars for the Age of Global Enlightenment program of the Boston Global Forum are enlightened political and social order, enlightened national law and global governance, enlightened economic innovation, enlightened cultural norms, enlightened education principles, and enlightened communication and discourse. So with that as a kind of a backdrop, let's get into the presentations and discussions. We have a lot of speakers today, and there's a lot of wisdom to be dispensed. And let me start with Michael Dukakis, who was the 3-term governor of Massachusetts in the 1988 Democratic Party nominee for president. Mike is currently a distinguished professor emeritus at Northeastern University in Boston, and Mike is also the chair of the Boston Global Forum. Mike?
Thanks, Tom, very much, and thank you all. I'll try to be brief because we've got a lot to do and lots of good people to discuss this with, but it's just a great pleasure to be part of this and to have an opportunity briefly just to share our experience here in Massachusetts, which began at a time when this state was in very, very difficult shape economically. When I first began getting into Massachusetts politics, and that was a long time ago, the state was not doing well economically. I'm sorry to say it was one of the more corrupt states of the country. People were down, people were not optimistic about our future, and our history in this state over the last many years has been one of slowly but surely beginning to first clean up the state itself, which badly needed commitment to integrity, And secondly, to begin to look for ways that we could build a much stronger and a better state and regional economy at a time when this state's future looks very bad. It took a lot of work on the part of a great many people, but I'm happy to say that today, Massachusetts is one of the most successful states in the country. We're doing extremely well. We still have a few places in the state that need help, but on the whole, the state economy has done extremely well. And I hope we can share that experience with you as part of this relationship that we've been developing, because we have much to learn from you as well. And I think one of the things that it is important for us to emphasize is that the world is not just a big power place. You have experiences that you can share. We have experiences that we can share. And working together, I hope we can help Tuan to develop as we have. I know you're working hard at that, and we want to be as helpful as we possibly can. But I'm here to tell you that, and it's not something that you don't know, that it's possible for something other than, and in countries other than the great powers, to make real contributions to not only their own future, but the future of the world as a peaceful, thoughtful, collaborative place. That's what I think we all want. And thanks to Tuan's leadership in particular, and the work of so many of you, I think we have a real opportunity to do this. Obviously, we face major problems. Climate change itself is something that collectively we've got to go to work on and solve before it badly hurts this planet of ours. But I just want to say to all of you that to the extent that Massachusetts can share what has been now a successful experience in reviving this state, and to the extent that we can learn from you as well as you work on similar problems, we want to do that. That's the future world that I think most of us want very much to see, and I'm just delighted to be part of this today and to be part of what we have tried to develop together. And I'm quite optimistic that we can do that and learn from each other, and at the same time help you to build a kind of economic and innovative future that you want for yourselves and your people. So, a pleasure to be here, a pleasure to be part of this, pleasure to bring the Boston Global Forum into this as we have, and I'm looking forward to great things. And Tom, I think meetings like this are very important as we chart a future for ourselves together, and also share our experience and what, at least in Massachusetts now, has been a very positive result. It wasn't many years ago, believe me, it was difficult. But they've been able to do some great things, and we hope and expect that we can be helpful to you as you yourselves to do great things. So, hats off, greetings, and look forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And there certainly are lessons learned from the Massachusetts miracle that can be shared, and I think will be enormously valuable. So let me turn now to Danilo Turk, who was the president of Slovenia and is currently president of the Club de Madrid, whose members are the former heads of state and heads of government of democratic countries. President Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, and thank you all for having organized this meeting. I would like to particularly thank Governor Dukakis and express our appreciation for his wise words with which he just started our conversation today. I'd like to express my gratitude to my Madam Vaira Vike-Freiberga and Zlatko Gumpia, former President of Latvia and former Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina, respectively, and above all to Mr. Tuan Nguyen, who is constantly contacting us and making sure that our work, our cooperation progresses effectively. We are meeting today and in the process of preparing for the next, what we call in the Club de Madrid Policy Dialog, a major conference that we organize once a year. As Mr. Patterson has already explained, we are a group of former prime ministers and presidents who were democratically elected, around 120 of us from about 70 countries, and who are prepared and eager to share our own experience with thinking and vision of others in an effort to improve the world. Now that may sound ambitious, but the theme of our policy dialogue next year is building the age of global enlightenment. And that itself is an ambitious idea, which we share, and we are excited to be part of its preparation. We are looking forward to coming to the province of Nha Trang-Khanh, the city of Nha Trang in Vietnam. Many of us have not yet visited Vietnam. I am one of those who have not yet had the privilege of visiting Vietnam, and we are very much looking forward to having this conference organized next year. And of course, we are preparing ourselves for the occasion, for the conference. I would like to recall that in September we had a very interesting discussion in the form of a policy lab focusing on the questions of artificial intelligence and various problems which arise in the context of movements towards a digital society. Our approach has been very much shaped by the experience that we have in our respective countries and has actually come down to a very important focus, and that is human rights and human-centered development of artificial intelligence, the use of artificial intelligence, and the development of digital societies. We see an enormous amount of opportunity for strengthening human rights in this context, but also certain dangers we must not overlook. We also explored the questions of transatlantic approaches to fundamental rights and artificial intelligence and digital space, the activities in the digital space. We also talked about the elements and process of an international legal framework to fundamental rights in digital spaces. Now, this shows that we have paid a great deal of attention to the normative aspect, because we believe that the whole area of future development of artificial intelligence and activities of humans in cyberspace, in the process of digitalized transformation of societies, requires more sophisticated normative regulation. This is necessary in order to foster development actively and adequately. And obviously, we have to keep the importance of human person at the center, and human rights as an important protection of human person in all circumstances. At the same time, we have paid a great deal of attention in our conversations in September to the question of how to ensure governability of the transforming societies, how to ensure that the societies will be organized in a manner which would allow democratic governance to progress. In other words, the democratic progressive aspect of enlightenment for the future. Again, an ambitious requirement, but one which is clearly very necessary. Then, of course, there are certain aspects which may sound more technical in legal sense, like how does one move the regulation from a state in which we are now, and which is clearly not satisfactory, to perhaps something that we know in the international practice as a soft law, towards a more hard law, fully fledged law in the future. In that context, we have had in September contributions for a number of personalities active in this field. I'm very pleased to say that what we heard from UNESCO at that time regarding the articulation of an agreement on the ethical base of artificial intelligence, that has been accomplished to a large extent. The UNESCO has adopted the respective document, and there is progress in our in various organizations as well. I'm not going to go into details of this on this occasion, but what I would like to say is our basic aim is ambitious, it sounds ambitious, and rightly so. And then, of course, we have to see what kind of requirements exist for that ambition to be fulfilled, and also how do we manage? What is the manageability, governability requirement in this context, and how does one ensure that future progress will serve human beings? We are looking forward to this discussion today, and we're looking forward to all the preparatory process towards our meeting in Vietnam later next year. And obviously, Vietnam is an excellent place for exploration of new approaches, of new development. And we are very pleased that we have partners who would help us to understand that, and we hopefully can bring a little bit of our experience into that process. With this, I thank you for your attention, and I would like to listen to the rest of the discussion and perhaps participate in it as well. Thank you very much.
Now, President Turk, thank you so much. Next, I'll turn to the Chief of Party for Khanh Hoa Province, Nguyen. Ninh.
First of all, on behalf of the leadership of Khanh Hoa Province, I'm very happy and very delighted to participate and to attend at the sessions at the forum today, together with all many distinguished leaders and scholars in the world. So among the professors and leaders of the world at the meeting today, some have visited Vietnam, Khanh Hoa, some have not been able to visit Khanh Hoa. So I really hope that all of you will watch a very short video clip on the presentations of Khanh Hoa province.
As the coastal province of South Central Vietnam, Khanh Hoa has a 385 kilometers coastline with 200 large and small islands and 3 globally well-known bays such as Nha Trang, and Cam Ranh bays. This archipelago plays a vital role in the defense and security of Vietnam and the region. Mũi Đôi Hòn Đầu of Khanh Hoa province is the place to welcome the first sunrise on the Vietnamese mainland. With the advantage of good time, good place, and good people, Khanh Hoa takes all its strength and potential as a driving force for convergence and creative purposes for the region and the whole country. Vân Phong will be built into the most modern marine economic center in South Central Coast and Central Highlands in its economic development during planning. It is targeted to become a gateway to the sea and cooperation along the east-west and north-south economic corridors. Cam Ranh Bay is oriented to develop as a high-quality eco-town with a complex of typical tourism products. Khanh Hoa is the convergence and traffic hub for the whole region. Cam Ranh International Airport is the 4th largest airport in Vietnam with 10 million passengers per year. Nha Trang is a place with blue sea, white sand, and golden sunshine. The city is like a sunny day, and the convergence of trains and revives the shores of inspiration. Khanh Hoa is playing an airwood over high mountains and wide oceans to rivers go on. Elegant necks bears the countryside trees. Deep river and stone cave where the country is off. The above captions show famous messages gifted by nature to the land. Folks of Khanh Hoa are always gentle and have peaceful people with their solid aspiration for better life. Ponagao Towers is one of the unique architectural promises of Chiang-Mai culture. Longsheng Pagoda with an enormous white Buddha statue was built in 1889 at the foot of Taipei Hill. Nha Trang Cathedral was deeply inspired by Gothic cathedral architecture in 1928. All tangible and intangible cultural values create a typical sea and island culture for the land. Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa faces a new development opportunity and strives to become a city under the central government's jurisdiction by 2030. It will be a convergent, integrated destination for investors in line with Industrial Revolution 4.0. Nha Trang City plays a crucial role in convergence and pervasive-driven development. Nha Trang has 4 research institutes, 8 universities, 6 colleges, 9 professional secondary schools, and 40 vocational training facilities. As a human resources training center in South Central Coast and Central Highlands, Nha Trang is a place associated with the life and career of the scholar and Dr. Alexander Yatsen. In 1891, he first arrived in Nha Trang and then founded Nha Trang Master Institute in 1895. He lived and worked for the rest of his life in Khánh Hoa. At present, the leadership of Khánh Hoa province is working with McKinsey and Company, a consulting firm from the US, on the planning to make Khánh Hoa become a new standard area of the quality of life, work, and tourism. Talking about the chief of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa, Dr. Alexander Yatsen has said, "I cannot live here for anywhere else. Only here is my soul open." A peaceful land with simple cultural identities, open-minded, friendly, and decent people. With significant features, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa is expected to become a flagship in the age of global enlightenment.
So thank you very much. Now we'll hear from the governor.
Tom, and now Mr. Nguyen Ninh, mid-speech. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Tuan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you, for watching the short video clip on the histories and development of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa. Once again, I would like to thank the warm sentiment that the sharing that all of you have extended to Khánh Hoa, to our locality. As you know that the world is living in an era of opportunities and challenges. Some of the challenges are local, but they are global. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic that the world is experiencing. And we think that we should work together more frequently, to work closely with each other in order to address the challenges, the global challenges, so that we could enjoy our shared development. The video clip is very short, but it has presented the overview of our development. And I want to highlight some of the following elements. All the geographical location, Khánh Hoa has a very important strategic position of Vietnam, and we is the connections between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. in the north and south axis. And it is also the hub to connect the east and the west between the central highlands and to the sea, to the East Sea of Vietnam. So Khánh Hoa province has many places. For example, we could access to the international maritime route and the South China Sea and also the Pacific Ocean. There are many very busy traffic, maritime traffic lines within this region. And we could easily access to the Northeast Asia and also to the South Asia through the international flights from our city. So when we talk about Khánh Hoa and Nha Trang, it is a very famous place for tourism. So the coastal sea of Khánh Hoa is the convergence of the warm and cold stream from the north. And it is the only place in Vietnam that we possess the deep water. The average temperature is about 26 degrees, and we have a very mild sun, so very favorable for high-end tourism products. For countries and history, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa used to be one of the centers of cultures and religions since the ancient times, with many national monuments, such as Punaga Tower, and Long Sơn Pagoda, and Nha Trang Cathedral, as we have already shown in the video clip. So, expressing by many ups and downs in history, the land and the peoples of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa had an exchange, reconciliations among Asian and Western countries in order to integrate and to develop. So this is where the Indo-China Institute of Oceanography was located in 1930, and Pasteur Institute and also the Research Institute for Vaccines and Medical Biological Products. And this land is a place where Dr. Alexander Yaxin, the great French Swiss scientist, who discovered the plaque bacillus in 1894, so helping the mankind to stop this pandemic. He has traveled to many places in the world, but chose Khánh Hoa as his second hometown, and spent more than half a century living, working, researching, and creating. He once said that I cannot leave this place, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa. Only here my soul is open. Regarding the personalities of Khánh Hoa people, from the past until now, the people of Khánh Hoa always keep the virtues of gentleness, friendliness, and openness, and humility. Especially, they are standing ready to contribute, to share with the open, to the new ideas, and in order to make a better social development. And this picture, I believe that most of you see very clearly in the co-founders and CEO of the Boston Global Forum, Mr. Nguyen, a son of the hometown, Khánh Hoa Nha Trang. And we are very proud he was the author of the book, Remaking the World, creating a global era of enlightenment. We hosted the Tea Festival in 2015 on the occasions of the 20th anniversaries of normalization between Vietnam and U.S. relations, and it was also the place chosen to host important meetings of the APEC. And those events show the recognitions of the world with Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa and with Vietnam in general as a destinations of peace, creation, and aspirations for peace for the future. I would like to add that on the development strategy of our city, our province in the future, we have a determination that in the next 10 years or even in a shorter period of time, we will become a centrally run city. So I would like to explain more about this concept. So we have 63 cities and provinces in Vietnam, in which only 5 cities are centrally run cities. So Khánh Hoa is incorporated in the master plan of the government as a centrally run city. So in order to achieve that goal, it's not only infrastructure development, not only the cultures and education development, but we will have to focus on the fact that Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa will become a smart city, a creative city, so that we could convert the wisdom and from all over the world into Vietnam. And we hope that you will contribute your ideas and wisdom and to introduce the resources for us so that we could make Nha Trang to become a hub city of Khánh Hoa, to become a smart city, a creative city, and sustainable city. And we are preparing the master plan in cooperation with McKinsey consulting agency to develop the master plan up to 2040 and Vision 2050. And we are working with other consultants from Vietnam and from all over the world so that we could adjust the master plan for Nha Trang City until the year 2040. And we will shape the development of green, smart, international cities. And for in industrial sector, we will move to the high-end manufacturing, focusing on energy, shipbuilding, food and beverage processing. And to develop aquaculture, so we will move toward a high-tech production, sustainable development of the marine farming, and we will diversify our tourism products to the high-end segment. So to make Khánh Hoa and Nha Trang to become a new standard of qualities of life, work, and tourism. And in order to realize that vision, we are working very closely with many leading corporations and investors in Vietnam, the Vin Group, Sun Group, FPT, and many other investors. And many other foreign corporations such as Mitomo, Lotte, Hyundai, they are making investment in our province. So we hope that the Global Forum of Boston and the World Leadership Alliance will introduce large investors from the US and from Europe to explore the business opportunities and investment in our province, which is such an important goal. Within the scope of this forum, I would like to emphasize on the following 2 suggestions. First, I really appreciate and welcome delegates from the Boston Global Forum and the World Leadership Alliance to contribute your initiatives and solutions to complete the development strategy of Nha Trang and Khánh Hoa province in particular, so they will become a global flagship for development. And these cooperations will create opportunities and environment for strategists and former world leaders to get a touch to work with Khanhua province in order to realize this important strategy and contributing to the consolidations of cooperations between Khanhua and Boston Global Forum and to realize the initiative from the forum, from the workshop Peace and Innovation in 2015 with the participation of many former leaders and from many professors who are attending this online workshop today. And the second proposal from the outcomes of the discussion today, Khanhua would like to host large-scale events in Nha Trang City in 2022 to welcome leaders from the Boston Global Forum, leaders from the World Leaders Alliance, and delegates and investors to visit Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa and to further contribute your wisdom and experience and to help Khanh Hoa Nha Trang to realize our aspiration to become a creative hub in the new era of global enlightenment that I may. So on behalf of the leadership of the Khanh Hoa province, I would like to share my thoughts and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Chairman of the People's Committees of Khanh Hoa to take the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a very important meeting, and we are here today to discuss a very important topic, which is building Nha Trang into a flagship area in the age of global enlightenment. On behalf of the People's Committee of Khanh Hoa Province, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to you all for your very special feelings towards Vietnam, and particularly Governor Michael Dukakis and former presidents and prime ministers of countries and all the scholars and speakers present here today. And as Ms. Ninh has mentioned, the people of Khanh Hoa are very proud that our province holds four very beautiful bays, which has enormous potential for economic development. Or, for example, Nha Trang Bay is seen as one of the most beautiful bays in the world, and Cam Ranh Bay is also seen as also has a great potential to develop into a very important port area of not only Vietnam but also the region and the world. And Vân Phong Bay also has great potential to develop into a special economic zone. And we have made proposals, recommendations to develop Vân Phong Bay into a marine economic center of the region and also of the country with the highest quality of development in the region. And our proposal is being considered by the National Assembly and by the government. And we also have around the Bay of Nha Trang, a very large area for aquaculture, and those are all the potentials and advantages that the province is boasting. And with such potentials and strengths, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa is becoming a very attractive destination for foreign investment. And we are developing a master plan to develop Vân Phong Bay into a marine economic center. And we are also developing, planning to develop Nha Trang into a tourist hub of the region. And Nha Chu also part of the bay is also of great interest for foreign investors, where the investors have expressed their great interest in developing mega cities in and the metropolitan areas in that region. And as Mr. Ninh mentioned, we also have a very mild and good climate, a very moderate climate. And we have over 300 days in a year with, beautiful sunshine. And we also have great potentials for developing the marine economy and also for tourism. And we also have great potentials for development of the the health system, and we can actually provide many health services. And not only Nha Trang, but we also have other wonderful beaches such as Dalang, Dốc Lết, or Ninh Hòa, or Bãi Chài, the long coast of Cam Ranh, which are so beautiful. So with our advantages in terms of climate, in terms of people, in terms of the land, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa has great potential to become a very attractive tourist destination, a destination for foreign tourists and foreign investment as well. And in the next 10 to 5 years, we are focusing on developing a number of industries. In addition to promoting development of high quality tourism, we are also focusing on the promoting development of logistics services, because Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa is also a very large gateway linking our mainland to the South China Sea. We have the expressway, the highway system. We have the international airport. And not only the Cam International Airport, but we also have the Tuy Hoa International. We're also developing, planning to develop the Tuy Hoa International Airport, which is only 30 kilometers from Vân Phong Bay. And we are developing the plans to develop the North Khánh Hòa and South of Phú Yên province, and to connect these two regions. So it can be said that the triangle of Phú Yên, Khánh Hòa, Ninh Thuận, and the city of Dialog has the enormous potentials to become a hub for tourism. We also have an expressway from Nha Trang to the city of Dialog, and it takes only about 3 hours to drive between the two cities. And in a nutshell, we actually have favorable conditions for development of different industries in our province. And the provincial leaders have already called for foreign investment and also the local investment into the industrial development in Khánh Hòa province. For example, Viettel or Vincom, and we are also working with Mackenzie, as Party Secretary Ninh mentioned, to develop a master plan for Khánh Hòa. And it can be said that it is a great aspiration and desire for the people of Khánh Hòa to build Nha Trang into a flagship area in the age of global enlightenment. And this is also a wish of all the sons and daughters of Khánh Hòa province, including CEO Nguyen. And I want to take this opportunity to once again thank the Boston Global Forum and the former leaders of countries, the members of the Club de Madrid, and the experts, the scholars, for your support and assistance, and especially your participation in this very important meeting, so that we can share with you about the potentials and the advantages, the strength of Khánh Hòa province. And we look forward to your continued support so that Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa can be developed into a smart city. We already have a master plan to develop Khánh Hòa by 2025 to become a city under the central authorities, or centrally run city. And we very much hope that you will help us attract the potential investors or experts so that they will come to us. They come to Khánh Hoa, Nha Trang to do business and investment here. And on behalf of the authorities of Khánh Hoa province, and following the welcome and the invitation of Party Secretary Ninh, I once again would like to invite you all to come back to visit Khánh Hoa province at the soonest possible. And we hope that we can, in the future, meet again in such very substantive meeting, so that we can share our experience of development between the cities or the local authorities of countries around the world. And once again, thank you all very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the Secretary of the City of Nha Trang. Distinguished former leaders and distinguished scholars, professors, Mr. Nguyen Tuan, as the head of the City of Nha Trang, it is a great pleasure for me to attend our discussion today, and organized under the initiative of the Boston Global Forum. And I'm very happy to hear that many of you have been to Khánh Hoa, Nha Trang, and you came to Khánh Hoa, Nha Trang a long time ago. And as the people of Nha Trang, we feel very happy about that. And we are confident that you will soon come back to visit our city, to visit our province, so that you can see with your own eyes the impressive development of our province and our city over the past years. And as the Party Secretary of Khánh Hoa province and the Chairman of the People's Committee of Khánh Hoa already said, we have great potentials for development for Nha Trang. We can see that we own many valuable things. First, it is the cultural identity, the cultural values of the Vietnamese people, of the Cham people, and it can be said that this is a place of conversions of different cultures from the world. We have the Cham culture, we have the Viet culture, and we consider cultural values and the people as the soft power for Nha Trang to develop in the past, at present, and into the future. And as Vietnamese leaders already said, we have many advantages and strengths. In terms of natural conditions, we have the Nha Trang Bay, which is a very beautiful bay, and recognized as one of the most beautiful bays in the world. And over the past decade, Nha Trang has experienced remarkable development, especially the development of the infrastructure for tourism, for services. We have so many world-famous brands in tourism, in service sectors, present in Nha Trang now. And thanks to that, Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa has been chosen to be the host city of many important international events. In terms of the development plan for the city of Nha Trang, it is a very important part in the development agenda of Khánh Hoa province. We are aimed at developing Nha Trang into a center of economy, politics, culture, and education and tourism of the region. We are very much interested in the process of digital transformation, and we are working out the plans to develop Nha Trang into a smart city. And today, we would like to suggest that the speakers and professors and scholars present at this meeting today will help us in the time to come, and you will come up with your initiatives and solutions to help us build Nha Trang soon become a smart city of the region and also of the country. And secondly, we, for the city of Nha Trang, we are very interested in preserving the diverse cultural identities and cultural values of the city. And we always consider the cultural values and cultural identities and the local people as the soft power for development of the city. In addition, we hope to promote international cultural exchanges with countries across the world so that we can absorb the unique cultural identities and cultural values from all over the world. And therefore, we do hope that you will help Khánh Hoa and Nha Trang province to so that we will continue to become the host of international events in the fields of economy, tourism, and culture. And we already have the experience of hosting international events and international conferences. And we look forward to your continued support and assistance so that we can develop this area. We also hope that you will help us connect with the cities across the world so that we can together share our experience in development so that together we can develop. And with that regard, I once again would like to extend my heartfelt invitation to you all to soon visit Nha Trang so that we can develop in the future. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for helping us to understand the history, culture, people, and aspirations of the Nha Hoa. I know I speak for all of us in saying that it deepens our desire to help you as much as we can to fulfill your remarkable vision for the area. Let me now turn to Sandy Pentland, who's a frequent contributor to the Boston Global Forum and is a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sandy?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. A lot of what I do focuses on data and AI because these are key tools for being able to build the future that you want. And I'll quote President Xi from China about this, and that is that he says the data is the new primary means of production, like capital, like labor, like land. And that's a very different way of thinking about the future because data, of course, was nothing only a decade or two ago. And now it's as important as money. And I agree with him. In fact, it may be the other way around, that he agrees with me. But he also goes on to say that he who has the data has the initiative. And this is also absolutely true. Without having good control, good ability to harvest and use data, you can't accomplish your goals in a competitive world. But at the same time, any sort of ethical world, any sort of ethical development requires close attention to privacy. Companies want to protect proprietary data, and nations want to protect certain data that they deem as secret. Then how can you do this? It turns out that there are several ways now to do this. And if you don't mind, I'll just spend a second showing you some slides. I know that's not what people typically do here, but I think that it will be illustrative. So let me just show you this, and hopefully you can see it. So we're all familiar with credit cards. And credit cards are interesting because they do not share data. They empower people to be able to tell the merchant that you have enough money. But actually what a credit card does is it's a number that tells MasterCard or Visa who to ask whether this is a good sale or not. And so all MasterCard sees is this routing number and the amount. All the merchant sees is the answer, yes, it's good, or no, it's not. And your data stays in the bank. So it's not something where they're sharing data, but yet it gives you the service that you need. And countries are beginning to move to doing other sorts of data this way. So not only does this protect the privacy of the individual, but it's much safer from cybersecurity point of view because you don't have copies of the data. So perhaps the first country to do this at scale was Estonia, but now many other countries are beginning to do this. And so you can do health data, you can do work data, you can do social payments this way. And if you put this together, it's what's called digital identity. And it's part of the Sustainable Development Goals, one of the major goals, because it is something that gives people empowerment in this new digital age. And interestingly, McKinsey estimates that building this sort of infrastructure, having this as part of your society, will increase your GDP by between 3 and 13% by 2030. And for Vietnam, this would be on the high side because it reduces corruption, it makes processes much easier, and so forth. So this is something that you probably don't think about because people aren't used to thinking about data. And when they do, they usually think about, well, I'm going to gather all the data as the government or a big company. But that's not what you want because that's very dangerous. This is a way of leaving data in control of the people that own it or have rights over it, but still getting the use out of it. So if this is so good, who's doing this? Well, there are many people that are doing this. And in particular, nations that depend on trade are moving ahead quickly on this. So for instance, we helped Swiss set up a thing called Swiss Trust Chain, which you can look at, which is a general platform for trading data. Oh, okay, how important is this? Well, let me just point out that one type of data is money. Money is just ones and zeros. Medical data is another type of data. There's all these notions about the non-fungible tokens, which are important in culture. And so we've helped them set up this system, but they're not the most advanced. There's also Singapore, and their sovereign wealth fund has set up a competing type of platform called UBIN, U-B-I-N, and this was done in conjunction with J.P. Morgan. Why did they do this? Because Temasek and Singapore depends on investment in the Indo-Pacific area, as you know.
30 minutes.
And so, you know, it is a way of getting ahead. And of course, China does this.
No.
What countries need to do is figure out where they sit in the space. So for instance, and I'll finish real quickly, we're building a system like this for Australia with Maersk and cooperation from Singapore, because it matters who owns the data and who controls it. And we feel like countries strongly need to have a national presence in this, and that they need to cooperate with countries like Singapore and interoperate with people like China. So this is a little bit different way of thinking about things than maybe you're familiar with, but I think it's incredibly important because if you don't control your own data, if you're using somebody else's system, and it's a system that you don't like the power behind, then you're in real trouble. And of course, Vietnam depends on trade for its future. So this is a really important thing to get right. And I'll just stop there. Thank you.
No, thanks, Sandy. That was very helpful. Now we're going to hear from Zlatko Ragumdija, the former Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Zlatko.
Thank you, Tom. I mean, it's really an honor and privilege to be participating in such events with so many people who I haven't seen for such a long time in one place. Of course, I have to start with really pointing out the importance of the fundamental, maybe one of the fundamental papers, or let's say, things, concept that we started from, which is the social contract for the age of artificial intelligence. And I see here, I was just going through the list of us, and I see the 7 out of 10 of us who are original co-signers here from President Verga, my dear friend, and my Governor Dukakis. And I see Alex smiling in here, of course, and Tuan and Thomas and others. I see so many friendly faces, and now I see how this, when we started this, how it is growing and growing, and this is something that now is going to be seen on, not only on a paper, but it looks like we are going to make it alive. And in that respect, I really want to thank to our new friend, new member of the panel, of the people who are working together, Mr. Nguyen Ninh, who really made us impressive presentation of future sites that we want to make as a become a flagship area in the Age of Enlightenment. Of course, this is part of the overall process that's building flagship areas in the Age of Global Enlightenment, and I think that the places that are already the pioneers of this overall activity, Boston, Riga, Ljubljana, of course, and I have to add some cities from the part of the country where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the broader Adriatic Ionian area, or part of Mediterranean, or Balkan in a certain extent. We are already having cities who are very, very interested to join activities that we are talking about now and be part of the one global framework of the cities that are making Age of Global Enlightenment being alive. I'm talking in particular about Dubrovnik in Croatia. I'm talking about Sarajevo. I'm talking about the cities who already show the interest to be joining forces with like-minded people and entities. And today, actually, that we are launching something that hopefully in September next year we will physically be able to see how the things are improving. Of course, I will just say a few words about the things that we were some of us were part of from Boston Global Forum. I'm talking about Tuan and some other people who are present in here. Of course, I have to greet my two double presidents. I have two presidents in here, President Turk and President Verga. They are my two presidents as the presidents of NGIC and Club de Madrid. And of course, I'm really very glad that I see people who are like-minded around projects like this. And of course, Governor Dukakis, I have to special thanks to you, because I mean, what Boston Global Forum is doing in this respect, and what we are now extending to the new horizons with extending to building Nha-Trang-Khanh Hoa. Forgive me for my language, because you can imagine how tough time I have naming the name of the city, because you have tough time naming my last name, so we are in the same boat. In any case, the most important thing is that we understand each other, even with such a little tip fellas that sometimes were from our discussion. But to make a long story short, I just want to point out one of the things that we were discussing last few months. That we were talking about transatlantic, how we can extend this transatlantic cooperation to the global scale. And among other things, when it comes to artificial intelligence, despite the fundamental different approaches to artificial intelligence, there appears to be a number of promising avenues to create cooperation around the governance of AI-based technologies, whether in domestic sphere to protect human rights, as President Turk was talking about, or in the geopolitical sphere around common national global security interests. But at the same time, the true test for international cooperation for the rights-based governance of artificial intelligence, however, will come when someone dares to broaden discussion from the group of relatively like-minded countries and traditional allies to truly global forum. And that's how I see our endeavors. While the likelihood of that happening anytime soon seems very thin, I think that we starting that walk. And that's very important because given the AI-driven new Cold War, discussing artificial intelligence governance among a broader and more geographically diverse group of countries certainly has the advantage of enriching discussion with a wider set of regional perspectives to inform a possible future approaches. In that context, I really do look for the common work, doing it on a global scale, but also trying to build it up in places all over the world, from Boston to Riga, Sarajevo, Dubrovnik, and ultimately, not ultimately, but probably hoping for our common flagship project, building Nha-Trang-Khanh Hoa, becoming a flagship area in the Age of Global Enlightenment, and being the beacon to others, as well as in following others who want to be part of the future. So thank you very much, Jonathan, and looking forward to listen to others and enrich myself with people who I really learned a lot, and I appreciate them. And of course, Tuan, thanks to you to convene us in such a nice setting.
Zlatko, thank you very much for the kind words. And now let's hear from Vera Freiberger, former president of Latvia and of the Club de Madrid, and a wonderful friend of the Boston Global Forum. Welcome.
Am I unmuted? Mr. Chairman, Governor Dukakis, dear Tuan, dear Danilo, my president now, and my colleagues and distinguished representatives of Nha Trang. I have had the good fortune of actually visiting the place that we are hoping to visit next year, for the annual policy dialogue of the World Leadership Alliance Club de Madrid, and also as a place that the Boston Global Forum plans to develop this concept of the smart city, of an enlightened city, of a new age for the future. The place we hope to be going to used to be known as Indochina when I was a child, living in a then French protectorate. It used to be called Indochina, but when I visited it, I was struck by how little it has to do with China and how little with India in terms of what it is. It is uniquely and attractively, historically, absolutely a different culture, different tradition, a very rich folk culture. I'm particularly interested in folk cultures as well as modern developments such as artificial intelligence. And I was struck by the richness truly of the heritage to which the authorities from the city also alluded to. I was also struck by the beauty of the country, and particularly about Nha Trang, because it has beautiful sandy beaches and a beautiful bay, which we also have in Riga. But there's a big difference. If our waters in the summer, if they're 18 degrees Celsius, then we think that that's kind of normal. And if they hit 20 or 21 degrees Celsius, then everybody is absolutely thrilled out of their minds with the good luck that they've had. You have there an ideal climate. There are only places like Cali in Colombia and a few other places in the world that have a climate that's not too hot, not too cold, a beautiful setting, and truly, I think the World Leadership Alliance and its guests will be terrific ambassadors for the place as a place to visit after they have had first-hand experience of it. One thing, if I may, already, since we are touting ourselves at the World Leadership Alliance as people who have experienced and advice to share, I would warn those responsible for the future plan and the development of the city and of the region, not to turn it into an urban jungle. It has beautiful nature. It has ambitions of improving and multiplying the tourist infrastructures, which it legitimately sees as one of the paths of its future economic development. But I would warn the authorities of the country and of this particular region, do not turn your beautiful beach into a garbage dump, such as happened, for instance, in Mexico, in Acapulco. I remember in my youth going to Hornos Bay when it was white sand, beautiful clear waters, and then 25 years later, which isn't all that much when you think in history, after a storm, the whole bay in Acapulco was about 1.5 meters thick with garbage and nothing else. You could not see water, the surface of water anywhere in the bay. That is the sort of danger, the pollution of overpopulation and only semi-developed infrastructures that are geared towards making money, but not necessarily towards going the whole chain of a smart city which has everything from A to Z planned out and working according to preserving the development, having sustainable development, clean development, green development, if you like, in a full sense of the word. The AI aspect, I think, is something that the city, that with such ambitions and such a vision, also has a great deal it can contribute to. I think it has the potential of becoming a flagship city for the whole of Vietnam, because it is, and it has another geographical advantage in a country that is stretched out enormously from north to south, much like Chile is in South America. It is situated roughly in the middle and therefore equally accessible to the north and to the south of the city. So that is an advantage that it has, and I think it would be beautifully situated to become that, the flagship city of having all the digital advantages of the modern world that Alex Pentland was talking about. The sort of educational facilities that the group of which I was a part, an expert group of UNESCO, about the education of the future. All the, if you like, exemplary infrastructures for digital literacy in the whole city and in the whole province. Using automatic translation, for instance, in a country where not that many people have had contact with other parts of the world for many years, developing the kind of artificial intelligence translation programs where just with your smartphone you can go up to anybody on the street, and such programs. Certainly in Latvia we have specialized areas of specialists working on automatic translation and language processing. And I can just imagine just a simple one concrete example, a city and a region wishing to attract tourists who will obviously have difficulties communicating with the locals, having a handy app that allows you to contact the local Vietnamese for a dozen of the more frequent languages would be a tremendous advantage for letting people sort of wander around and enjoy the beauties of the countryside. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall not take up more of your precious and valuable time. I think we have some exciting possibilities here, and certainly I'll be very happy to continue to participate in this enterprise. And yes, if there's anything from the experience of Latvia and of Riga that can be of any help or interest in Vietnam, of course, I would be happy to serve as an intermediary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to turn to John Quelch, who's one of the co-founders of the Boston Global Forum. He's the dean of the Miami Business School, formerly associate dean of Harvard Business School. John.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Tom. I've been very impressed by the commentary. I'm speaking to you from Miami, which is known as the crossroads of the Americas. And as the former Prime Minister of Latvia referred to the geographic endowment of Nha Trang and Khanh Hoa, it's a similar situation to what we have in Miami, where we are at the crossroads of North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And Miami has developed into an outstanding logistics hub. It's known primarily for its beaches and its hospitality and tourism, but it is also an outstanding logistics hub for the region, leveraging the geographic endowment. And that is my first point to our esteemed leaders from Khanh Hoa province and Nha Trang, is that the foundation of any city brand internationally, the foundation is built into the things you have already mentioned: the cultural endowment, the historical endowment, the geographical endowment, and the natural endowment, and as the Prime Minister mentioned, the absolute importance of not squandering the natural endowment for short-term gain at the expense of long-term sustainability. That's my first point. The second point I would make is that building on this endowment requires a very savvy commercial strategy. So it's fairly obvious that hospitality, tourism is a major industry and can be built even further. But what does tourism and hospitality really bleed into in terms of other industries? We in Miami have found that we have an outstanding real estate sector in Miami, both commercial as well as residential, but also related, of course, to the hospitality industry. But I don't think that real estate sector would have developed to the international standard that it's developed to unless there had been Miami Beach. And Miami Beach was the starting point. So the hospitality industry, developing that results in the need for an outstanding real estate sector. But then what do you do beyond that? And that's where I think the key challenge may lie, because we know that many cities in the world aspire to be smart cities with respect to IT access and so on. And actually, COVID and remote work has perhaps enhanced the opportunities for beautiful cities, beautiful locations, to become even more important from a residential point of view, since business people are able to operate we have many business people operating on Miami Beach who are running billion-dollar hedge funds from their swimming pools. Remote work and technology enable people to live in beautiful places and do business worldwide. That should be a great advantage to Khanh Hoa. And I do recall that in addition to all of the attributes mentioned already, the first internet pipe into Vietnam some 20 plus years ago was, I think I'm right in saying, installed by Tuan and his colleagues. And so historically, Nha Trang has a very interesting role in the development of IT within Vietnam. But what you need to develop this IT, you need software engineers. And I look at the educational institutions in Khanh Hoa, and they are laudable, but they are not world-class institutions. And they therefore need to be thought about in terms of how can they be transformed and upgraded to provide the skilled labor pool that will be necessary to develop the IT infrastructure upon which any smart city has to depend. And that can be done through collaborations with other international universities, but fundamentally it also has to be a decision by the government of Vietnam in Hanoi that investing in Khanh Hoa as an IT epicenter for the nation is worth the effort and the time. The educational institutions, especially software engineering, that's going to be very, very important. And I think the last comment I want to make is in relation to the various leaders that we have through the Club de Madrid with us today, as well as Governor Dukakis. Vietnam has a population that is closing in on 100 million people. That is a very important nation. And yet, at the same time, any nation is made up of multiple cities, communities, towns, provinces. And Khanh Hoa, I think, is around about 1.3 million in population. And so I think it's actually very fortunate that we have the wisdom of the former president of Slovenia, the former president of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the former prime minister of Latvia, because Slovenia is around about 2 million. Latvia is around about 2 million. I think Bosnia-Herzegovina is around about 3 million, a little over 3 million population. And the experiences of people who have been intelligently running government organizations for 2 million and 3 million people, that's the kind of advice that the party leaders of Khanh Hoa and Nha Trang really need. So I'm honored to be a part of the session. I look forward to visiting again. I hope that the government of Vietnam will be intelligently reassessing its quarantine requirements on foreign travelers visiting Vietnam, as Singapore and Thailand have already done, so that it will be possible for us to more easily get back to Vietnam and to Khanh Hoa. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Next is Vilas Dar, who's the president of the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. Vilas.
Thomas, thank you. Your Excellencies, former Presidents and Prime Ministers, Governor Dukakis, Mr. Tuan Nguyen, to all of you, I am so thrilled to be in your presence to share a few words as the President of the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by saying that our namesake, Patrick McGovern, was a true champion, I think, of both Vietnam and of global action in the pursuit of a shared humanity and a shared future. I know that he spent many times traveling to Vietnam, and I personally have had a chance to truly explore the country as well, from the breadth and depth of both human experience, of the generosity and grace of the Vietnamese people. And so I'm quite thrilled to be with you today. In my professional role, I have the great privilege of advising heads of government across the world on a combination of factors that have to do with how we think about AI policy and AI development, not merely as a construct of international cooperation, but also as a means to deliver economic opportunity, to deliver greater political participation for citizens, to think of how we create a new shared architecture where all are present. And so as I reflected on my comments for today, I think I would like to start with two propositions. One, I think, not particularly controversial, that each of these elements of social, economic, and cultural participation are in the midst of a deep transformation, guided by the potential of what technology offers, whether through the means of interaction or through the mechanisms of participation in commerce and in political activity. AI and data will change many of our presuppositions. Now, I know that's quite a large statement, but as I said, I think still relatively uncontroversial. The second may be a little bit different. I think that even as we acknowledge the imminence of this transformation, we should also recognize that the shape of that future is not preordained. There is no mechanism where our fate and our destiny have already been defined. The corollary to that statement, then, is that it is our time to shape what that future looks like. And I think from that perspective, I'd like to share with you three key principles that I often rely on as we think about in the development both of new AI technologies, but also as we think about what economic development might look like in a place like Nha Trang. The first is a principle that both these technologies and the structures around them should be centered in community. What that means is, rather than defining what these structures might look like from a presupposition of how development has looked for the last 100 years, we first need to understand what the local opportunities, the local challenges, and the local problems are. To give you an example from the world of AI in which I operate, we find that many of the commercially available technologies, even for things like language translation, often rely on some of the most popularly spoken languages. But when we center the creation of these tools inside of communities, we realize that local dialects, local linguistic differentiations, and often the local cultures of places as they're reflected in the use of slang, in the use of local phonomic and linguistic differentiation really matters. The only way we discover those challenges and build technologies and development to suit is by inviting the community to be not merely users of these technologies, but also architects of them, to join in the creation of these tools. This leads to our global perspective on these issues, that development of AI tools simply cannot be held in the hands of the few technology companies that operate at scale to build these tools for all of us, but rather that we need to democratize access not merely to the usage, but the architecture of these tools. I find great opportunity as we understand what the work of Nha Trang might look like in the future to be a center in the Age of Enlightenment, to become a true voice to speak to not simply the interests of the Vietnamese people, but of people across the global south and truly across our global community. The second principle that I often come back to in thinking about the development of these tools, but also of economic opportunity, is that they simply have to be widely accessible. That small, limited centers of deep research, a model of the 20th century, have led to exactly the kind of construct where tools are built for specific populations. We need more diverse groups of participants in building these tools, and we need different conceptions of the problems we want to solve. Particularly as I think of the usage of AI tools to engage with things like geo-satellite imagery, to understand how that imagery might be used not merely for the principles of building logistical and supply chains, but also to understand how it can impact the local movement of rural products and agricultural products into urban centers. I think often of examples where rural and subsistence farmers in many of the communities we work in are now already able to use AI tools to better predict their planting cycles, when they should harvest for the most economic gain in terms of market prices, and how they might use these tools to smooth their cash flows, to allow for a more stable economic environment, and so that they might then be able to build long-term economic sustainability for their families. And if you'll indulge me, the third item that I often think of is that development can't happen for its own sake, nor can it merely happen for the sake of economic participation. We've seen too often over the development cycles of the last 50 years how the addition of external actors who are seeking commercial return can lead to quite predatory interventions. What I'm inspired by in today's conversation and what I've learned of your work in Hoa is the idea that this truly will be a locally driven initiative, driven by values of participation and of economic opportunity, and where I know that you might rely on this entire community of eminent personalities to help and advise, that the ownership, sovereignty, and decision-making of the creation that you are doing is held within the community that you represent. These principles that I've shared with you, as I mentioned, are often ones that we think about merely in the construct of building new AI technologies. And yet, as common wisdom is, they're often both accessible and applicable to the challenges we all face as we build the future together. So I'm very proud to speak to you again from the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. As a global institution that serves in civil society, we offer our support, our engagement, and our true optimism and hope for what you're trying to build. And we cannot wait, as John just said, to come and be with you in a journey of learning, exploration, and execution. Thank you very much. Thomas, back to you.
Yeah, Vila, thank you. That was very helpful. Very helpful. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Matt Carlson, who's the former VP or Vice President of the World Bank. Matt.
Thank you all for all the inspiring words that you have offered to this theme. It's like a balm, in a way, to engage in a discussion that is normal in these times of geopolitical and geoeconomic strife. It is not so often that we can get to the core of what development is about, a city, a region, a nation. And so I just want to say how important it is to keep the eye on the prize as we engage with whatever country or region or city that we are engaged in. This is what we all should be doing. Instead, we have been sidetracked by geopolitics and geoeconomics and made the endeavors that you in your region, in Nha Trang and Vietnam generally, and many other countries should be doing and are doing and saying you are doing. So that's my first point. And it's also a kind of warning that we must do what we can from the region where you are working in Vietnam or where others are working in their countries to make sure that we don't lose the normality of seeking developmental consequence in this era that we are in. It is difficult, but it is what is most important. Now, Vietnam has over the years shown very well that what it is like to be transformative over decades and decades. It's a history that we know. It does need to be repeated, but it does need to be respected. And there's every reason to understand and hope to understand the ambitions that the leaders of Nha Trang have laid forth today, that they actually can work. Yes, you're starting from your base. It is a base which is rich, as you have described it, and others here who have experience from IT-based development in other places and countries have shown is something that can develop. But there are a few things which are important to think about. I would say, first of all, it's necessary to really work with the hardware infrastructure. It is not something, this kind of productivity that we are looking for in IT development does need its hardware, its linkages, its strong base. Look, even in the United States today, Congress is struggling to finance hardware expansion of internet. Also in Sweden, we are still working on that. So it makes sure that you have that infrastructure in place, because even if you have a strong, aspiring center, you're going to have to work with a broad part of the country. And that goes to my second point, because you have to have the backward linkages. IT is not just something that drops from the sky to intelligent people, of which there are many. You have to be linked to agriculture. Obviously, we spoke about tourism, about other things, but the agriculture of Vietnam, the industry of Vietnam, has to be part of what the IT
system is delivering. If you look to Sweden, for example, we now have 30, 40 years of experience. And of course, we have Ericsson, Finland had Nokia. But if you look at the origins of these companies, they weren't IT just. They were part of the industry, and they grew out of industry. And then they had spun off things like Spotify, and we now have IT billionaires and this kind of thing. But you cannot develop yourself as an IT-based economy unless that industry and the backward linkages exist. And that's how young people will see more opportunity. And for that to work, thirdly, yes, social contract. So the book about an enlightened future highlights a social contract. Now, a social contract is not easy to develop. It's different in different countries, but one thing that is very important in a social contract is that you have to have a space for freedom, for competition, freedom of speech, freedom of initiative. You have to have the meeting place of differences of views. It doesn't come just from one order. It comes from a multitude of expressions that fit for sure in a social contract. And we're all trying to find out what these social contracts should look like in our own different countries with our different experiences, and then in a global economic world that is so difficult as ours is. So with that, I think you have the basis to go forward. The two proposals that we heard to support you with the best ideas for the region. I think we should do everything we can. And if we can be part of something that you organize for the future, I think that would be very interesting. And you will have then the linkages to places like, well, my own country and my own city, Stockholm, with what it offers in terms of linkages. But there are many other places in the world too. But with our history, I think we can focus on the normality of doing the work of development in this world that is losing its orientation in so many places. Thank you.
No, Matt, thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to a good friend and close associate of the Boston Global Forum, Remu Damodaran. Remu was the first chief of the United Nations Academic Impact Program. Remu.
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you for leading this very spirited discussion, which is in many ways reflective of what I think Tuan envisaged when he launched with the Boston Global Forum and the United Nations Academic Impact, the UN Centennial Initiative, the idea that we should look at the world in 2045, when the United Nations will complete its centenary, and see what will be the daunting task before it and the way that we can anticipate their fulfillment. And two of those objectives, one is that it should be a continuing conversation. This particular forum manifests tremendously. And the second was, is there some practical manifestation we can give to the Centennial Initiative, to the idea, included in that initiative, of an age of global enlightenment? And that is where the city comes in, the city of Nha Hoa. The idea of a city which really epitomizes peace and security for the world and also for itself, and a new culture, if you will, of a social, inclusive, and incisive social responsibility. Now, in our conversation today, we've heard from Governor Dukakis about the city of Boston, from President Lagumdziza about Sarajevo, from Professor Quelch about Miami. I'd like to bring two examples from my own home country, India, one more than half a century ago, and one current as we speak. When the city of Chandigarh in northern India was being designed by the French architect Le Corbusier, he envisaged a city which was very much like the human body, a city which had a clearly defined head, a heart, lungs, a circulatory system, and the viscera, the industrial area. And it was this pattern that led to the creation of Chandigarh as we know it today. Fast forward to 2021, the current government in India, led by Prime Minister Modi, is in the process of transforming the capital city of India, Delhi, into a truly 21st century city. And this project, which is called the Capital Master Plan, is now being overseen by a small select committee, one of whom includes a Professor Mawsum of the Indian Institute of Technology, one of India's renowned leaders in the field of artificial intelligence. So the idea that this new city must depend upon digital connectivity and the power of the human mind is something which the project is about. Listening to our conversation today, I thought of the very first remark and the beautiful phrase that Governor Dukakis used of a peaceful, thoughtful, and collaborative city. And if you translate that, if you will, or transport it to the human body, peaceful, where the heart and lungs are at rest, thoughtful, where the mind is at work, and collaborative, where arms reach out and the other limbs, the feet, take us on journeys we have not been before. So that brings us really to the city that we envisage. And when we saw that wonderful film about Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa, there was a quotation in it about my soul being open, which is the other dimension of the human body, which can never be complete in physical terms alone. So what is it that we are going to see in this? We've had so many ideas put forward which are compelling. But I think the one thought, and this brings me back to something which President Danilo Turk said in his very first address to the United Nations General Assembly as President of Slovenia. He said, if there is one word that sums up what the United Nations must do at this time in history, it is transformation. And when we think of that idea of transformation, and we take it forward to this year, at the last session of the United Nations General Assembly 2 months ago, the President of Vietnam, Nguyen spoke about a green transformation. He spoke about transforming challenges into opportunities with digital know-how and new technology. That would be at the heart of our city. Transformation both in the sense of communication and reaching out. Transformation, the idea of one physical space offering opportunities for others to emulate. When President Freiberger was one of the 5 special envoys appointed by President John Ting of the General Assembly in 2005 on ideas to transform the United Nations, she was one of the leaders of the initiative to create a democracy fund, a peace-building commission, to revamp and revitalize the Human Rights Commission, the Human Rights Commission into a Human Rights Council. So this is where ideas come in, and which are compelling for our time. I was fascinated to hear my compatriot, if I may, Bilal speak, and I recall he had written some time ago about the imaginative proposal put forward by President Biden of a digital core of the United States, somewhat akin to the historical Peace Corps, but really this committed public service of minds and hearts and yes, bodies getting together through that transformation. This is what we will see in the artificial intelligence world society city, which we hope to have in Vietnam. Because it would need to be a city which is both a physical space, but far beyond that, a cerebral space. And this is where that coincidence comes in. The space of the human mind and the space created by the technologies which each one of you have spoken about and which are at our command to use constructively and well and truly prove that our souls and our hearts are open. Thank you.
No, thank you, as always. Words of wisdom. Thank you. Finally, we're going to hear from David Silverslade, who's a Boston Global Forum board member, and David is a professor at Harvard University's Medical School. David. Are you muted, David? We've run over time here, and it may be that we ran into a situation where David had another commitment and had to leave. So, look, this has been I think, a really helpful conversation. One that's been a two-way conversation. A lot of ideas and valuable information from both sides. Tuan had given some thought about some specific ways that the Boston Global Forum can help Nha-Trang-Khanh Hoa. And I'd like to kind of briefly summarize those. And obviously from the discussion, they're but a small part of, I think, all of the ways that we can collaborate and work together to really make that area of Vietnam not only great for its people and for the country, but a model for others. So one of the things that we can do to help is to foster innovation by connecting Nha-Trang-Khanh Hoa to innovative thinkers and centers in Boston and elsewhere. Another by organizing an annual lecture by an outstanding thinker that would be held in the Trang City. I think we can also help in identifying and attracting financial investors, particularly of a certain kind, that might be quite interested in the area. And you're relying on McKinsey. I assume that master plan is primarily an economic master plan. But I think there are also ideas needed in the area of architecture, landscaping, a kind of a more robust and holistic master plan that's consistent with the culture and natural beauty of the area. And we also we're creating what's called AIWS City. It takes me quite a while to explain what it is. It's a virtual city. And I would refer you to Remaking the World, the book that came out recently that so many of the people on this talk today contributed to. It's described in detail in that. But it's a virtual city based around the idea that it will help foster innovation by everyone and create a lifelong learning capacity in everyone. And it's going to be a way to connect cities around the world. So this is a kind of a digital home that's meant to be a hub. And I see David now has kind of poked his head into the screen, and I'll get to you in a minute, David. I'll just finish this quick little summary. And then I think finally and importantly by providing advice on policies that can strengthen the area's economic sector and that will protect the natural environment and that will promote the global enlightenment values. When President Turk spoke about the importance of the normative, I think that's a key, and we talked about that today, that we really need to be thinking about human values in all of these decisions around innovation and development. And so that's another area, I think, where Tuan has been able to identify where the Boston Global Forum can be of assistance. And of course, as you've heard, in many other areas as well. So I'm going to give Tuan a chance to wrap this up. But before I do that, I want to go back to David, who I introduced earlier. So I'll skip the introduction, David, if you want to just kind of jump in and share your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I'm sorry. I seem to be having a problem with my microphone with the program here. I'll be very brief because I know the hour is late and the discussion has been robust and really quite thoughtful. I wanted to just make the point that mental health undergirds everything we're talking about. Mental health of the population is an extremely important index of the health of the population. It's linked to physical health. It is linked to productivity and to economic growth. In the absence of development, there are lots of stresses and traumas. with development and in the process of rapidly developing, there are also a lot of stresses. And it's the case that the incidence and prevalence of mental illness in every population, in every culture, is great. In Vietnam, up to 30% of the population suffers with mental illness at one point in their lives. And if you add substance use and alcohol, the number goes up significantly from there. The challenges as you develop this wonderful city and region will be to make sure to bring the population with you and to provide a structure and an infrastructure for mental health. That includes also being able to address traditional cultural beliefs that are present in many parts of the world that don't fully recognize the impact of these diseases and the ability to treat these diseases. And it means training and developing a workforce who has the expertise to be able to screen for, diagnose, and treat depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance use conditions, as well as serious conditions in addition like schizophrenia and so forth. And so I would just urge that as you and as we together make this journey, that we see at the center of it is the mental well-being of the population, which is proportional to how much you can develop, and also to the resilience and to the functioning and well-being of the population. So I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to follow up around particular medical and psychiatric interventions or elements that could be developed.
David, thank you. So again, we're going to close with some remarks from my dear friend and the Boston Global Forum's CEO, Nguyen and Tuan. Tuan really has been instrumental in building out the Boston Global Forum, and Tuan played a great hand in putting together today's discussion and the people who are in on the discussion. So we owe you great thanks, Tuan, and let me turn it now to you and for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Tom. And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much, Governor Michael Dukakis. He's a dear leader and great leader of Boston Global Forum, and with myself in personal, 10 years came to Boston, and he is a very special leader and work with me and support me, and also with Boston Global Forum and our dear colleagues and board members, and also great thanks to leader of Club de Madrid and board member of Club de Madrid as President Danilo, Turk, President Latvia, Vic Federica, and Zlatko Lagunjida, and many Club de Madrid members work together with Boston Global Forum for a long time and next some year ahead. And also thank you very much for leaders of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa with great enthusiasm and high energy, young, talented, and also great vision. And we hope we start and today is connect and continue with conference we do with Nha Trang 2015, but much more higher level, higher productive. And we think today with me were so moved because I have two hometown, very special hometown, Nha Trang, and now Boston also. But we sit here and I have feeling in Nha Trang. And when I came to Nha Trang, I have feeling I'm in Boston. That is two very fun cities in my heart. And I think Nha Trang very much opportunity. And we hear today already great ideas, strategy, vision, now we start to do and prepare and look forward to this event 2022 between Boston Global Forum and Club New Madrid collaborate and organize. I hope everything will smoothly and do special and historical event in Nha Trang next year with support and help and host from leaders of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa and people. And I say now I send my heart to Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa. Is always my heart is always in Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa to my people, and also everything we start from Nha Trang. We start Vietnam and Nha Trang is incubate my first Vietnam and very special. And now we came to Hanoi and Boston. So now we come back together. No, never far Nha Trang, and Nha Trang always here with me and in heart and all. I'm so grateful to all my friends and leaders. Visited Nha Trang, support for Nha Trang for a long time, and we hope we will all see you in Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa next year. And thank you again for Chief of Party Nguyen, Ninh, Governor Nguyễn Tuan, and Chief of Party of Nha Trang, Hồ Văn Mừng. You are doing great job, and I'm proud about Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa and your leaders of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa, this generation. And I trust and believe Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa, leaders of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa and people of Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa will make new chapter of history for development in Nha Trang, for sustainable development, and become world-class city and flagship city in the Age of Global Enlightenment. For my say thank you from my heart to every friend. And Vietnam have special day, that is the Tết at the museum in Vietnam, Lunar Museum. And today I have feeling this Tết in Nha Trang, and I have feeling Tết now. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Thank you again.
So on behalf of the leadership of the Khanh Hoa province of the Nha Trang city, we would like to thank the leaders of the Boston Global Forum and the Alliance of World Leadership for participating in the discussion and forum today under the very important theme to building Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa into a flagship area in the age of global enlightenment. The time for the discussion is very limited, but we have again a lot of experiences from you, and it has opened up many other interesting issues for further cooperations and partnership. Once again, I would like to thank you, thank both of you, and I hope to see you all in Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa in the near future.
Thank you, Ninh. Thank you. Chào các bạn nhé. Vietnamese, I say Vietnamese with my friend in Nha Trang. Cảm ơn Ninh, cảm ơn các bạn Nha Trang-Khanh Hoa, và hẹn gặp các bạn ở Tết này. Chúng ta có rất nhiều thuận lợi để triển khai, và hy vọng đây là buổi khởi đầu rất là...
Ja, KS, a todos, curator,
Yeah. Thank you.
leave call,